In 1816, a small group of miners claimed to have mined a large amount of gold and silver in the Rocky Mountains. They hid their wealth and swore to each other to secrecy. And for the most part, they kept their secret. But one of the miners, a man named Thomas Beale, wrote a letter pinpointing the exact location of all the silver and gold. The only catch is, Beale wrote his letter in code. Eventually, all the members of that mining party died, including Beale himself. And guess what? No one has been able to crack the code of his letter. His treasury remains hidden somewhere in the Rocky Mountains. If anyone is interested in going up to search and find all that gold, the rest of us could stay behind here maybe and pray for you, as long as you promise to tithe 10% of whatever you find. If that code was easily cracked, I'm sure there would have been many volunteers to do the digging. In a sense, the last few weeks may have surfaced a human trait in us that we're not proud of. Have you been to the shops over the last 2 months and find that someone else has grabbed the toilet paper, the soap, even some foodstuffs? Not everyone knows when they have enough, or cannot distinguish between enough and all. There seems to have been something of that trait in Philip in today's gospel. Despite all Jesus had said and done over the last 3 years, this disciple hasn't been given enough, and he asks Jesus to show us the Father, and that will be enough for us. The daily news reports every day speak about supplies of food and of PPE and raise concerns not only about the supply, but also about how it might be distributed. A similar topic emerged for the early church as depicted in the Acts of the Apostles this evening. Their good start seemed like it was beginning to flounder. The disciples' first attempt at communal living, selling everything they had and bringing it in for distribution so that no one claimed anything as their own, but everyone had enough. But just 2 chapters later, what happens? The Hellenists, that is, the Greek Christians, complain because their widows aren't getting as much as the Hebrew or the Jewish Christian widows. Maybe it was greed or racial prejudice on the part of the Jewish Hebrews. Maybe it was grabbing on the part of the Greek Hellenists. Maybe it was neglect on the part of the apostles. Maybe it was just a faulty method of distribution. Good intentions run amok. Whatever it was, it wouldn't be the last time that the church would have to deal with the tension between ethnic groups, the haves and the have-nots, ways of effectively meeting need, appropriate social services. It wouldn't be the last time that the church will have to deal with the deeper issue of balance between word and work, sacrament and service. So they moved the structure of ministry to balance that role between the ministry of preaching and the ministry of compassion, to find a balance between soul work and servanthood. And in order to do it, they chose Stephen and Philip, along with 5 others whom we never heard of before and have never heard of since. Their focus was on the ministry of food, the ministry of serving, the work of compassion. In doing so, they modeled a balanced ministry, the whole ministry of the whole church. They proclaimed the gospel, and they did the gospel. The Acts of the Apostle paints a picture of a church very much in transition. The disciples, and now many friends, have moved from a frightened group in that upper room to a group of men and women boldly proclaiming a new relationship between God and his people. Despite its difficulties, at times stumbling to find the next step, miraculously it still manages to move forward. The last few weeks here in Holy Family have been a time of quiet transition too. Overnight, our focus moved from having you present at Mass to trying to offer nourishment through live streaming. Some of this nourishment was our weekday, Sunday and Easter liturgies. Some of our offerings were words of encouragement by our parish staff and friends. Others were still busy in the giving bank, serving those in need physically. It seems that the different areas of service of the apostles is still alive and well. The ministry of proclaiming the gospel and the ministry of doing the gospel. In these challenging times, our hope is that you are doing well, that in some way you are finding the nourishment that you need. In the gospel today, Jesus knew his disciples were going to be forced to do things differently. As he faced his imminent death in Jerusalem, he urged his disciples on, telling them not to be afraid. Do not let your hearts be troubled, are his words. Despite his not being physically present, they would never be without the Lord. I do hope that you feel the same. The last 2 months have forced us to do things differently. Despite not being able to be physically present here to receive the Lord, we hope that you feel his presence in your heart, that the Scriptures, his word, is both transformative and uplifting. Today, Jesus promises his disciples that he has gone before them to prepare a place for them in God's house. In recent weeks, we may have realized the beauty of that promise. Jesus doesn't want to be distant from us. He wants us to be with him in his Father's house. In the days when we have been forced to be alone, maybe even to be isolated, we might appreciate more the value of being present. Today we thank God that he has given us enough, that without faith our lives would be without purpose or hope. If the Easter season has anything to say to us, it is that Jesus has begun before us and wants us to follow. We have the promise that Jesus has gone to prepare a place for us, that of the many rooms in his Father's house, there is a room with your name on it. As Jesus promises to make room for us in heaven, we are called to make room for him in our lives today. On this Mother's Weekend, we thank God for the love, joy, warmth, and understanding mothers bring to our families and to our homes. May God bless all mothers and expectant mothers. And may the Lord also welcome mothers who have died to their eternal reward in heaven. Lord, bless us through our Easter journey.